Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Bicep community call of June 2023. We have some pretty exciting demos here today, but we don't have too many topics, so we're going to take a good amount of the call as questions and answer time. So what is the community call for? It's for you guys, not for us. So we wanted to give you guys a community call that was more often than once a quarter or once a year. So this is a monthly community call in which we share updates on all of our releases and anything that we're working on. This also is a more casual connection for our community. So we won't always have exciting new announcements or feature reveals. Please use the chat. We'll be monitoring and answering questions. Most of our team is here, if not all of our team. So we are here to answer your questions. If you have any questions you want to ask us directly, you could raise your hand and unmute yourself as well. And we'll have questions and answers at the end. So please leave them to the end, but you could definitely ask questions in chat during. All right, so our 0.19 release, our last release was a little bit late, so we don't have too much to talk about here. We have small bug fixes here and there, but our biggest features are the Prettier formatter, which Shenglong will present in a little bit, and the deployment stocks public preview. I know that a lot of you guys have been waiting for the deployment stocks public preview for a while, so we're really excited to have that out today, or out this month, and Angel will be presenting that in a little bit. Our future releases, custom types GA will be available in August, 0.20, and private networking for deployment scripts. The MS Graph provider will be pushed out to end of August, so beginning of September, 0.21. Sorry it keeps getting pushed out, but we want to make sure that it is the highest quality for all of you guys to be able to use, and Shenglong will also be demoing that in a little bit. So 0.star and 1.0 hasn't changed at all, so not going to touch on that. All right, Shenglong, do you want to present?
Sure. Let me start sharing. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it. Do you think you could scroll, zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Great, thank you.
Does this look good?
Yeah, I think that looks good.
Okay, cool. So for this release, we're going to publish a new preview feature called Prettier. Especially a new formatter implementation that is better than our current formatter. So first of all, I want to share some context on what is the new formatter and what does it do and why we implement it. So first of all, what does the formatter do? So basically, the formatter implements an algorithm called Prettier printing. This algorithm is described in the very famous paper called a Prettier printer by Philip Wadler. And it's the same algorithm that Prettier and Black use. So if you are familiar with JavaScript or if you write Python code, you may already know what I'm talking about. So the algorithm basically prints the syntax tree with some optimized rules that are opinionated. And they also take the maximum length limit into account. Basically, will wrap code when it's necessary. So some of you might be wondering, why is the new formatter opinionated? So basically, the reason why it's opinionated is to end the debating on styles. So a lot of time when you are reviewing code, you might find that the code formatting that the author is using does not necessarily match what you would like it to be. So sometimes you have to be nitpicking on formatting, but with the opinionated formatter, you don't have to worry about formatting at all because everything is consistent, everything is automatic. Although some people might not like the way the formatter lay out the code 100% the way they would like, I think it's still worth the sacrifice because of its benefit. And for the demo to get started, I would like to show you some array syntaxes. As you can see here, I have a bunch of arrays. The first few are single line arrays. The variable names indicate their width. And here I also have a ruler, VS Code ruler set up as a visual indicator for the line length limit 80. Oh, by the way, first of all, since this is a preview feature, to enable it, you have to set the Pretty printing experimental feature in the Bicep config file. And then there's a new configuration section called formatting. Here I'm just showing you all the default values. So by default, the width limit is set to 80, and that matches the length limit of Prettier. Now let me get back to the demo. So as you can see, the first array has a width of 79, and the second one has a width of 80, and the third one has a width of 81. So this array exceeds the length limit, and same thing for this one, and the nested ones as well. And for the nested ones, this nested array will take 80 characters space, including indentation. But this one is pretty long. It exceeds the limit by 1 character. So when I format it, if I do format document, well, I could use the shortcut, but just to show you that here I'm formatting the document, let me just use the command. Sorry, format document. And as you can see, when after I formatting the document, I format the document, the arrays that exceeds the line length limit got wrapped. That includes the W81, W82 variable, and same thing for the nested, the first nested array. But notice this array, because it fits the length limit, it didn't get wrapped. But this one, it did get printed on different lines. So let me restore it to the original state. And the algorithm also handles comments very well. So if you have a leading comment and a trailing comment, it will force the array to break, even if it can fit in one line. Well, for the second one, it doesn't make sense to be printed on one line, because if you do that, you break the syntax. So the formatter is smart enough to handle all those edge cases. So that's it about array. And for objects, it works the same. So just to show you that here, I just formatted the document, and it is able to optimize the layout according to the length limit. One exception for object or optimization that we add for object is that sometimes you do want to break an object, even if it is short enough. Like for example, let's say I want to break the first object, although it only has like 79 characters. And to enforce that, you just print the first. You just put the first property on a different line and then format. It will then break the object according to the first property. So if I put it on the same line as the open brace and format, it will then print it on the first line. But if the object is too long, it will still respect the line length limit. So this is the one behavior that we copied from Prettier. So the next demo I'm going to show is the for expression, the ternary operator, and the if expression. As part of the new formatter implementation, we also improved our parser to make it less new line sensitive. So for one example is the for expression. So before, you cannot put the the for keyword on a different line than the open square bracket. But now it's possible. Similarly for ternary operators, before the change, the question mark cannot have leading new lines. Same thing goes for the column. So here, as you can see on the screen, I have a pretty complicated resource definition, which I copied from one of our public registry modules. And here I also have a short for expression. I have a variable whose value is a very short for expression. But for the resource, the for expression is pretty long and it's not as readable as the variable. So if I were to, and also notice that for some of the properties, the value is a like complicated ternary operator based on the condition. The true branch could be null or the for branch could be null. But this is really, in my opinion, not very readable. But if I were to format this document, as you can see, it would wrap the for keyword, and then you will also lay out the ternary operator nicely. So the operator will be printed on a different line. So I think this is much readable than it was before. One thing to mention is that the new line sensitivity fixes we've done for the parser are not perfect. And what I mean by that is that you still cannot have new lines after the operator. This is because our parser implementation relies on new lines to do error recovery, so you can get reasonable error messages. Well, I think at some point we might need to like write a better parser to be able to make our language fully new line insensitive. But that's a long-term fix we'll be chasing for. I think that's it about for and ternary operator, and the last demo is the if syntax. So for resource and modules, you could have conditions, and the conditions are wrapped in the for expression. Oops. Today you can only put the for condition on the same line as the resource declaration, but with the new formatter implementation, if you as you can see, since the if section exceeds the line limit, if I were to format it, it would print it on a different line like this. Again, I think this is much more readable than it was before. So the last demo for the formatter is functions and lambdas. And as you can see in this file, I have a very complicated lambda function call, and also a function that has lambdas as parameters. So before the new formatter implementation, this line, this very lengthy variable, you cannot really break it into multiple lines. Well, you can break the parameter, but for lambdas, you cannot have new lines after the arrow or before the arrow. But with the new formatter, now it is able to smartly wrap the line like this. And also, notice this lambda. If I have a very lengthy, say, variable name, and I format it again, it will get printed on a different line. So to fit the length limit. And I think for the one below, it was like this before, and if I format it, it will get printed like this, which is pretty neat. So that's it about the demo. So do we have any questions? Let me check the chat. Okay. Thanks, Stephen, for sharing the configurations. not out in the wild yet. Well, we are planning to ship this as a preview feature. We still need to polish some edge cases, and also we want to surprise people. So this demo is sort of like a heads up for people that we're going to make changes for the formatter. We will deprecate the current implementation in the next couple of months, and we'll make sure to document that in the release note. So yeah, that's my first demo. The next demo is going to be very short, but hopefully, but I'm actually more excited about this one, and I know a lot of us are looking forward to the graph provider to be published. And we actually just made some good progress today. I just saw another question. Why not just maintain a VS Code plugin? I'm not sure if I follow the question. Is this question for the formatter? Well, the formatter is part of the Bicep VS Code extension. So I'm not sure if I understand the question fully, but is the question are we suggesting like maintaining a different VS Code extension just for formatting? Well, I guess we can get back to the question offline, just to save some time. But let me get back to the graph provider demo. So today we just deployed our graph provider to our Azure dog food environment, and we tried a bunch of deployments, and they succeeded. So I just want to show off the deployment here. So here, as you can see, I have an ARM template with imports enabled. So you will see an import section, and here I imported a graph provider, and I also have a resource called my app. And this app, it's not an Azure resource, but instead it's a graph resource. It's an app registration. So with a graph provider, you will be able to deploy this resource through Azure deployment. So here, let me change my display name. The display name to Bicep Community Call demo. And just to prove that this app doesn't exist in my test tenant, try search the name of the display name of the application and doesn't find anything. So now let me go ahead and deploy this template through a sub deployment command.
While that's running, Chenglong, can it does it have to be at the subscription scope, or can it be at any scope?
No, it can be at any scope. It can be at any scope. For extensibility resources, you can use any deployment command. And while it's running, let me get back to Vic's question. So if the question is why don't we maintain a Prettier plugin, the answer is we don't have Prettier. To make Prettier work, you have to feed it with an AST or a CST, a parse tree. The problem is that we don't want to maintain another parser that has to be implemented in JS to parse Bicep files, because Bicep is implemented using C#. So that's the main reason. And hopefully that answers the question. So yeah. Going back to the demo, as you can see, the deployment command succeeded. Now let me go back to the Azure Dogfood portal and search for the application Bicep. Yeah, just type Bicep and the result just came out. As you can see, the application is created, and the timestamp proves that it's created today. And I can go inside to see the details. So yeah, that's basically a very short demo. But hopefully this can. Well, we still need to polish the backend, and for to make it reach out to production, there's still work to do. Because the bar is different when it comes to deploying a service to production. But hopefully we can get it released in late August as a private preview feature. But yeah, that covers everything I want to share today. Thank you all. And by the way, feel free to ask questions in the chat, and I can answer offline.
Thanks, Shenglong. Really appreciate it. All right.
Can we do, sorry, Stephanie, for
Yeah,
asking a couple
absolutely.
more questions, just from the chat so everyone can hear the answers. You demoed app registrations. I think the plan is to enable other graph resource types as well. Do we know yet what will be available in the initial release?
I can find a list. It's a subset. I think for the first release, there are like less than 10 resource types available. I don't know if Jason from the graph team is on the community call. I forwarded the meeting to him, so maybe he can answer the questions. So Jason, do you mind share a list in the chat if you can?
Yeah, I can look for the chat and share in the look for the list and share in the chat.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, and will existing resources work for graph?
We do support the syntax for a few resources if they are able to be identified by a client support key. So yeah, for applications, service principals, and groups, that will be yes, and we are still investigating about other resources.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Right. Are all the questions? Okay.
That's all I wanted to cover.
Cool. Move on. Our next demo is by Angel, the deployment stacks public preview. Angel, are you here?
Yep. Let me take over sharing.
Sounds good.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angel Perez. I am a product manager on the deployments team. Let's start by seeing if I have the adequate zooms here. Can everyone see this text fairly okay? Thumbs up in the chat if yes. Cool. All right, let's dive right in. So deployment stacks. Many of you may have heard of this over the past couple of community calls, but I'm going to cover some basics very briefly and dive into some demos. So deployment stacks is a new Azure resource type. So within Microsoft.resources, we now have this new type called deployment stack. It is a resource type that is meant to let you group together different types of Azure resources that you think share the same life cycle. And that way you can make updates on the single stack resource rather than having to do one-to-one updates to all the other Azure resources. This came about more so because there was two really big problems with resource lifecycle management. One of them was, as just described, Sometimes these resources don't share the same scopes. You might have VMs that are provisioned to many different app teams, and each app team gets their own resource group. If you were to want to make changes to that VM or those test provisioned resources, you would have to go one by one across all of those resource groups to make those changes. Another big problem was more guardrails in place. So a lot of these app teams are getting access to these resource groups in order to be able to build on top of those resources. But sometimes that access can be too much, and you want to, there was a need for a greater ability to block or prevent unwanted changes for those provisioned resources. That's how deployment stacks came about, and we're going to see in the demos what capabilities are addressing those. I don't want to spend too much time on these slides, so I'm just going to quickly cover this one visually, and we can dive right into demos. So just covering high-level Azure concepts. So we have the management group scope, we have the subscription scope, resource groups under that, and then resources go within resource groups. And just wanted to cover this quickly because we'll see how it affects a deployment stack later in the demo. So let's just dive right in. I want to start off by creating a simple stack resource, and I'm going to be using Azure CLI for this demo. We have PowerShell and we'll have Portal as well, so there'll be multiple ways to use a deployment stack public preview. So here we're just going to do a simple resource group scope stack. So by specifying group, sub, or MG in the commandlet name, you're defining where is that stack going to live. The scope of where the deployment goes is later defined with the parameters of that command. So in this case, we're just creating a stack called AP group stack at the resource group scope of this resource group name. And I'm going to be deploying a simple template, and you're going to see this flag called deny settings mode. Here it's set to none and initially, but this deny setting is the feature, the capability that allows us to block unwanted changes, so to speak. So before I dive more into deny settings, let's quickly take a look here. The way I created this, it's letting me know this is going to get created, and the action on unmanaged behavior of that stack resource is going to be detach. Detach resource groups and detach resources. What does that mean? So detach in this case is the word we use for disassociating resources from a stack. So can quickly take a look visually here. Assume we have a stack that is creating these resource groups and different resources. If I were to delete that stack, that behavior determines whether a stack should delete the resources it's managing or if it should detach. In other words, leave them in Azure and just delete the stack instead. So I was able to create this, and you can take a quick look in the portal here what this is going to look like. We're going to have a deployment stacks option in the settings and the already familiar resource group blade, and we're going to be able to click into our stack and see what resources are associated to it. Let's see if this one's a bit faster. Here we go. So that template created a VNet and a couple storage accounts. So right now we can see that in the deny assignment or deny setting of that stack, there is none. That's how we created that. So what that means is I could go ahead and delete these resources manually if I would want to. So that extra control is to further guard the resources that are managed by a stack. So I could go ahead and create this again but instead use the flag deny delete. And what that's going to do, it's going to place a deny assignment that's going to block deletes for all resources that are managed by a stack. What determines that a resource is managed by a stack? The template determines that. So as this runs, let's take a quick look at this template. So this Bicep template, every single resource defined here is managed by the stack, given that last deployment that I submitted. And we could see here that in the response, we have an action on unmanaged of detach, because we didn't specify any delete behavior. We have deployment ID. More importantly, we have the resource ID for the stack. So a stack is like any other Azure resource. And given it's a native resource type, you can manipulate it like any other Azure resource type. So you can use RBAC policy and other existing platform primitives to make sure only the right folks have access to this stack resource. So that went through. So we can quickly test here that, let's see, let's refresh this. This deny assignment should now show deny delete. And if I try and delete this resource manually, it's going to fail and let me know, hey, even though you have access to this resource and you have write access, you're being blocked by a deny assignment that is owned by the deployment stack resource. We can see here that indeed that deny assignment by this deployment stack blocked that delete. So let's switch to another demo very quickly.
Hey, Angel, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yep, go ahead.
I just wanted to share a little bit of context into why we're demoing stacks in the community call today. I think the public preview is pretty imminent. Do we want to share when we think that's going to be available?
Definitely. So we're shooting to announce the public preview on Monday, July 10th. Everything, full transparency, should be available late next week. But just to make sure everything is publicly available in all the different builds and polished, we're making the announcement on Monday the 10th. Also because a lot of folks are going to be on vacation next week, most likely. So yeah, sorry, I should have led with that. Was there any other questions, Alex, in the chat worth calling out now, or should I continue?
There are, but I think I would keep going for now, just reading the questions.
All right, I'll do my best after the demos to knock all those questions out one by one. All right, let's see, where was I? Let's create a subscription scope stack and see how that looks like. So here I have, as you can see, I'm in the scope of a subscription. So similar to the resource group. In the resource group view, I can see the stack as part of the settings for that resource group scope. So similarly, a subscription scope stack, you'll be able to find it in the settings for that subscription as well. So I created this stack, AP substack 1C, and you can see it has a couple of storage accounts and a couple of resource groups as well. Now I'm gonna show you what it means to manage the stack, what the managed resources are tied to the template of a stack. So let's take the template for this resource and edit it. So what I have here is main storage 3 Bicep. I actually already have it open here. So I had already created that stack with this template. So those are the resources that we just saw. I'm going to go ahead and comment out one of these resource groups. And the other storage accounts that are created with it. Okay. So I can now go ahead and deploy this. However, before I do so, I believe this was not created with the delete flag. So let me explain what that means. This command was used and there is no delete flag specified. And the delete flags are used again to determine what a stack should do when it gets deleted, or when resources get removed from the stack. Should it detach those resources and let them still exist in Azure, or should it go ahead and delete them? So I'm going to rerun this, but use the delete flags to specify that I want to delete all resources. Since I commented out both a resource group and a resource, I would have to specify the delete all flag. If I would want to just delete resources, I would specify the delete resources flag. All right, let's do this. I'm gonna leave this like that. And I'm gonna specify delete all. So now when this stack gets created, it's gonna see that these resources are no longer part of that template. And before moving on, it's gonna prompt me, hey, this is a behavior. You're gonna be deleting resources and resource groups that are no longer part of the last config of the stack. So I'm gonna go ahead and click yes. And as that runs, I'm just gonna let this refresh here and we'll be able to see what the resulting state of the stack is. So as that continues to run, let me take a quick look in the chat. See a bunch of questions, which is great. Awesome. Love that there's a lot of engagement in the chat. All right, okay, we can see already that these resources and that other resource group were indeed deleted just by commenting them out in the template. So that is probably one of the biggest values that Stacks is bringing to the table, the ability to clean up or tear down environments very easily. If you do not want to do it implicitly by manipulating the template, you could also do it explicitly. You could just go ahead and delete the stack resource itself. So once this finishes running, I should have the ability to delete this here, and we can take a quick look at what that looks like in the UI. In the meantime, I'm going to quickly jump over to the next demo, and we could probably show that delete towards the end. All right, let's take a quick look at that deny setting. So I already showed at the beginning how I was blocked by that deny assignment. So there will be occasions where you want to give that deny assignment some flexibility. Maybe you are the admin or cloud architect on the team and need to have access to manually edit or delete a resource and not have to do those edits through the stack. As the admin or cloud architect, you'll probably, since you're the person authoring the stack and deploying it, you can indeed just edit those resources through the stack. But maybe there's a stopgap measure that needs to be in place, and you want to give certain exclusions to that deny assignment. So let's take a quick look at what that looks like. So one of the first types of exclusions that we can do is excluding principals. So this is an AAD object ID can be someone's specific account, for example. So I'm gonna show what that looks like real quick. So in this other stack that I have, I can see that the deny assignment is set to deny delete. So if I were to go and try to mess with the storage account externally, and by externally, I just mean outside of the stack, I can go and try and delete this manually, and it's gonna say, nope, you're blocked by that deny assignment. Let's take a quick look at that, and then we can add that exclusion to the deny assignment. All right, we see we're instantly blocked there. Let's go back here and actually redeploy this with the excluded principal. So I'm going to use this command. And just in time, this other one finished running. So let's get this one started. Before I run it very quickly, I just want to reiterate, we always have to specify the mode of the deny setting. It can be none, it can be deny delete, or it could be deny write and delete. Now I'm adding that exclusion to the deny setting, and I'm just using my own account for the purpose of this demo. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. Since I specified the delete flag, it's going to say, hey, you're going to be deleting both of these. Is that good? Actually, since we already saw delete all, let's quickly change this to delete resources. And then we can see at the end what happens when I delete the stack is that we'll be detaching the resource groups. So maybe those resource groups that you provisioned for the dev teams, you want to keep those around, but you want to delete all the resources that were made available to them. By using the delete resources flag in this case, that would be very quick and easy with a stack resource. So I'm going to go ahead and run that and circle back to the other one that finished running. So this is the template where, this is the stack where we commented out those resources. And as you can see, as a result of that, by commenting them out while having the stack set to delete all, we got this result. These resources continue to be managed by the stack. These resources were just deleted by the stack. And given this one's also still running, let me take a quick look at what else we can show in the meantime. Oh, perfect, right on time. Okay, so I was able to update the stack and add my user as a principal to be excluded. So you can see here, now I have access to be excluded from this deny delete. So now, if I were to go ahead and let me just find it directly from here, if I were to go and try and delete this resource from outside of the context of that stack, this should succeed. So let's quickly show that. So it's going to be deleting the storage account. We didn't get blocked immediately, and there we go. That's one way that you can manipulate the deny assignment that's set on a stack. So what's the second way? We already showed that you can exclude specific users from a deny assignment, but sometimes maybe you want to exclude a specific action and then just let every single user that has access to that scope perform that action. There's about, I think 200 different RBAC actions that are supported, but this is what they would look like. So you would specify, similar to deny settings excluded principles, the flag for excluded actions, and then what specific resource type and action should be excluded. So for this demo, I believe I already have the excluded action of, oh, it looks like I have an incorrect action here. So the virtual machine's right. So we can go ahead and update that to the storage account, which is what I indeed want to exclude. We can go ahead and add this. So this is a subscription scope stack. Once again, it's going to be deploying whatever is in this main storage.bicep, and these resources will all become managed by the stack. The deny settings mode is set to deny delete, and we're going to exclude the delete action, but just for the storage account's resource type. So this is the only thing that's going to be excluded from the deny assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and run that. We can see here, since I did not specify any delete flag, it defaults to the detached behavior. If you want to delete both resources and resource group, you use delete all. If you want to delete resources only, but keep the resource groups, you use the delete resources flag. I'm going to go ahead and continue with this in detach. Let this run. As this run, we can take a quick look at what a delete looks like from the portal. So these are the only 3 resources remaining here. I can go ahead and attempt to delete the stack. And on delete, it gives you the same options as on create. You can default to detach by just doing nothing. You can specify, hey, delete all resources, but keep those resource groups. Or you can say delete both of them, the entire set of resources that are managed by that stack. The last thing that gets specified on delete is what gets honored by the stack. So for example, I could have created this with the delete all behavior, but at the end I changed my mind and I'm like, hey, I want to keep these resources. On delete, I can just say detach, and that indeed those resources won't get deleted. Looks like this finished, so let's take a quick look. Can go here, and this excluded action should be updated. Yep, now we have storage accounts delete. So if I go to that storage account resource, I should be able to delete it, even though there's a deny delete setting on all the resources here. Oh, here we go. So let's go ahead and show that. So we saw that that delete also succeeded. So the deny settings can be manipulated depending on the kind of exclusions you need, but the main purpose of it is to prevent unwanted changes, or in other words, lock down those managed resources. I know we're about 10 minutes to be done, and I think there's a lot of different questions. So I'm gonna take actually, let me just show one more thing, and then we can switch over to Q&A just to make sure we get all those answered. All right, so I believe this is the last one we created, so we could just take a quick look here. No delete flag was specified in this command. There's no dash dash delete resources. And we also didn't include delete all. So the default behavior now is detach. But as mentioned, if we decide in the delete operation, hey, I actually want to delete everything, then that last thing that gets set is what gets honored by the stack. So I'm going to go ahead and it's going to show me this is going to delete the deployment stack. And these are all the managed resources that are about to be deleted. So you can imagine the breakdown of the different environments that are made available to app teams that can be now easily updated, whether it's a swarm of VMs at different resource group scopes that need to change to another SKU, or tear down of those same VMs once a project gets done. Now with deployment stacks, you have an easy way to do one-to-many updates and also lock down those resources with the use of the deny setting. So I'm just going to quickly show this is deleting. Looks like all those resources were taken care of already. But I did not have to go there to the different resource groups and delete them one by one. You just delete the stack and the stack takes care of the rest. Awesome. So much action in the chat. I feel I've been missing, so let's switch on over to some questions.
Hey, Angel, so there was one question that I think we didn't answer that was about national cloud support in public preview. Can you share status of that?
Yep, so there's no national cloud support in public preview. We're shooting for national cloud support in GA timeframe. Let's see, what other questions? I don't know if there's a particular order, Alex and team. If we should go top to bottom or...
I think we've been keeping up pretty well with the chat questions, but there was one that we didn't answer that I see at the top from Matthias, I think. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but the question is basically following up on the drift detection topic, is it in scope to have some sort of auto remediation for drifts, like GitOps for Bicep?
So the way I understand that auto remediation for drips, if there is a one-click way to get to a previous state. We did a lot of customer calls on this, and we ended up realizing that at the end of the day, everyone falls back to their source control. So having the feature as something within Azure would introduce a second source of truth. So it ended up, folks and ourselves ended up realizing that, okay, if this is built into the stack feature itself, it would still be something on top of the Git source control that everyone is using today. So the answer there for auto remediation is, if you're tracking your infrastructure as code and source control, you should always have the latest commit to get to the proper state. So I hope that answers the question, or if I understood it correctly.
I think the desire is like, so let's say you deploy the stack and then, you know, Joe Schmo comes and changes something in the portal to just like immediately reconcile it. So to say, oh, this is actually managed by a stack and you changed it, so I'm going to kind of redeploy the stack behind the scenes to bring it back into compliance. Which we don't have a way to do today.
Yep, and it'd be good to hear more on the need for that scenario. We did a lot of calls on this, and we're surprised that it ended up always going back to source control. Any other questions? Let's take a quick look.
Yeah, I had a question, and maybe
Go
it's
for it.
off topic enough. So I have customers that want to get started in IAC brownfield, and so they know that there are Terraform tools, Terrafy and TF export that they can have it query the current deployment, and it provides a nice constellation of modules or Terraform files and stuff. And then there's also the export to ARM template and then the decompile. But there's a big difference. The Terrafy AZTF exports produce files that contain no errors, but the export and decompile produces files that have hundreds, if not thousands, of errors. And I'm wondering if anyone is working on Bicep tools to compete with Terraform. Or this is the wrong forum.
It's a good question, and just to give a little bit more context, export template in the portal is powered by schemas that are auto-generated, and these schemas go off of other Swagger files that RPs have to keep up to date. So that auto generation has improved drastically. Before there was like less than 50% coverage, and we're almost at 97% now. But there are still edge cases where resource type might fail to export due to a missing schema. So that's something that will just continue to improve over time. With regards to Stack specifically, there's a separate functionality. It is not to be confused with the export in the portal. But for example, if you're looking to get what was the template used to create that stack, we would be using what we see here as the export command. So let me just showcase that one real quick.
Yeah, and I guess my question wasn't specifically about the stack, but just in general, IAC using Bicep.
Alex, any thoughts on
Yeah, I
Bicep
think
tooling for this?
so I don't know enough about how the Azure exporter for Terraform works under the covers such that they can do, it sounds like you're describing basically a perfect export. If they are doing something that leads to more reliability for all resource types, I think that's something that we'd want to understand a little bit more. And we're all one team. I just don't happen to know the answer of how they do it. But we can take it as a follow-up to learn more about what they're doing and get back to you on that.
Yeah, and I think, I'm trying to evangelize our cloud native tools, and we run into, yeah, but Terraform works without error. Yeah, okay, fine. And then we notice that some of the product groups are releasing products that are supporting Terraform but not Bicep, and so it's just kind of a one Microsoft kind of thought that maybe we ought to prioritize more Bicep than Terraform.
Yeah, I mean, for whatever it's worth, we treat both of them as first-class citizens in Azure, and they're all managed by the same team. So from our perspective, we don't have an opinion on whether a customer chooses Terraform or Bicep. They're both good choices. As to whether a service provider, like a resource provider team, is providing documentation or in one language but not another, that should be corrected. So all the resource provider teams should be providing documentation for all the clients that Azure supports. So if there is a team that has documentation missing, we can try to help provide support for them getting that done if you point them in our direction.
Okay. Yeah, so if they're agnostically equal class citizens, it just appears to me that it's equal, but Terraform is more supported.
Yeah, I'd be curious to unpack that a little bit more, maybe offline. I'm sure there are many. I know that there are cases where there's Bicep documentation and not Terraform, and vice versa. I think depending on the services that you're working with, your mileage kind of varies, to be honest with you.
Right, and the perspective that I'm asking this question from is resources already deployed. Customer wants to now get into IAC because they realize that manual is not possible or not scalable. So they want to then start and get their first constellation of modules. And it appears that the Terraform tools are more easily understood and usable by customers.
Sure, yeah, we will definitely follow up on what they're doing. I promise if they figured out a magic way to do this, we will want to adopt it as well.
Cool, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
We've got one hand up. We can go over a little bit of time. Josh, you have a question?
Yeah, just wanted to ask about, and there's kind of a question in the chat from the VNet question that you answered a second ago, Alex, but perfectly acceptable to have, let's say, one stack that deploys a parent resource, let's say like a front door instance, and then a separate stack that, you know, has a web app service plan, et cetera, whatever is for that particular application. And part of that second stack would also include the child resources of the front door instance that would be necessary to get that app working within front door. Like there's not going to be any blocking of, you know, like a child resource in one stack versus a parent resource in another stack.
No, there should not. I mean, the only thing you'll have to be aware of is that sort of, let's call it the child stack. If you're ever deleting it or tearing it down, you should delete the child stack first before you delete the parent.
Right.
Because otherwise, like, once the front door gets deleted, then it's gonna the child resources will disappear regardless if they're managed by stack or not.
Okay, yeah, because that was the question somebody asked about, like if let's say you have a VNet that's not in a stack and you've got a subnet, which is a child resource, which is part of a stack, and somebody tries to delete the VNet, it'll take that child resource with it, even if it has a deny assignment on that? Or would it prevent the VNet from being deleted?
It unfortunately it'll vary by RP.
Okay.
Some do cascade deletion, which will then wipe out the child resources and basically bypass deny assignments, because that's just how that works. Because the child resource cannot exist without a parent.
Gotcha.
And if that deletion is allowed to go through, then the children have to go away as well.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
I think just to add on to this kind of line of discussion, we are undoubtedly going to expose some funny behavior, let's say, in resource providers with the stacks deletions that we're trying to do. And it, you know, it goes back to things that we've talked about many times around resource providers doing the right thing. But I expect, you know, we're going to run into interesting edge cases and points of friction, and we're going to try to squash as many of them as we can as fast as possible. But especially in early days of the public preview, you should expect to run into some of those things.
Cool. Christian, you have a question?
Yeah, just regarding the support by resource providers, how much kind of general strategic support is there versus cleaning up these things, and versus how much complaining and pressuring would you expect customers to do to kind of tidy that up?
It's going to depend. It's going to be on a case-by-case basis, unfortunately.
Okay.
All right, I think that's all. Great questions. We are 5 minutes over time, so I'm just going to end it here. But please reach out if you have any other questions. This has been a really great community call, and I'm really glad to see all the engagement from our community. So thank you so much, everyone. And I'll see you next month. Bye, everyone.
See you, folks.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.